It started with a friend request. Just that, one little red notification on a lazy Thursday evening. I was on the couch, halfway through a bag of chips, waiting for my girlfriend, Emily, to finish getting ready for dinner with her parents. I wasn't really paying attention to anything in particular, just mindlessly scrolling through social media when the name popped up, Mason Hargrove. At first, it didn't register. The profile picture was dark and a little grainy, just a guy standing at the edge of a pier, facing away from the camera, with the kind of artsy faded filter people used in 2015. The name itched something in the back of my brain. Not in a "do I know this guy from high school" kind of way, but more like a name you hear once in a story and forget until it shows up again at the worst possible time. I tapped into the profile, mostly out of boredom. It was locked down tight, typical of someone who either didn't use Facebook much or didn't want to be found. But there were a few public posts. The most recent one was dated 2 weeks ago, a photo of a broken window with the caption, "You can only hold in the truth so long before something cracks." Before that, a black and white image of an empty church aisle. And then a text-only status that just said, 3 years. Still waiting for her to tell the truth. That's when I started to feel it. That slow, creeping tension in the chest. The kind that makes your throat dry even though you're not talking. Something about the combination of his posts, the tone, the silence around them, it felt personal. Too personal. I glanced up just as Emily walked into the room, adjusting one earring, her other hand brushing hair off her shoulder. She looked so normal. So untouched by whatever vibe was radiating off Mason's profile. I held up my phone, showing her the friend request. "Hey, weird question," I said. "Do you know a Mason Hargrove?" The moment she saw the name, her entire expression shifted. It was quick, blink and you miss it, but I caught it. Her eyes flinched, her mouth pressed together just a little too tightly. She shrugged, casual. "Ignore it," she said, moving to grab her coat from the hallway. "He's nobody." "Ex?" I asked, half joking. She hesitated, not for long, maybe a second, but long enough for me to feel it. "Sort of," she said. "It was a long time ago. Just some guy who didn't handle things well when we broke up." I nodded like that explained it. Like that was enough. But the itch didn't go away. Later that night, after dinner with her parents, where she laughed at all the right times, where she seemed totally herself, I lay awake in bed beside her, scrolling through Mason's profile again. Still private. Still locked down. But those 3 posts stuck in my head. The church aisle. The broken window. The line about holding in the truth. Still waiting for her to tell the truth. I clicked message before I could talk myself out of it. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time. Then I typed, "Hey, who are you, really?" and hit send. I didn't expect a reply, but I got one. It came 2 minutes later. No profile picture. Just a gray bubble with a single line of text. "She hasn't told you, has she?" I read it twice, then again. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, uncertain. "Told me what?" I typed back. I watched the scene indicator pop up immediately, and then he went silent. No reply. I stared at the screen like it might explain itself. Maybe this was just some petty ex looking to stir up drama. That had to be it. Except now I was wide awake, heart pacing like I just sprinted up 3 flights of stairs. Beside me, Emily slept soundly, one arm across her chest, the other flopped over to my side of the bed. I lay there listening to her soft breathing and wondering how many lies it would take to keep something hidden for 3 years. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about it. While brushing my teeth, walking to the train, the words looped in my head like a stuck record. "She hasn't told you, has she?" Told me what? A lie? A secret? A whole other relationship? When we first got together, Emily told me her past wasn't complicated, but cluttered. A few bad decisions, a few ghosts. But nothing worth losing sleep over, she said. I didn't push then. I don't like digging into people's pasts when they're trying to leave them behind. But now, all I wanted to do was dig. I opened a private browser tab and typed in his name. Mason Hargrove. Not many results. A few tagged photos from years ago, mostly old party shots, blurry, drunken images from someone's college dorm. But one photo caught my eye. It was from a fundraiser Emily helped organize back in 2019. There, tucked in the background, barely visible, was Mason. Same face. Standing apart from the crowd. Watching her. That was the year we met. Which meant he'd been there. I zoomed in until the pixels blurred. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't part of any group. He was just there. Watching. That afternoon, I asked Emily how she was feeling. Casual. Offhand. Good, she said, pouring coffee. Why? I shrugged. Just seemed tired lately. Anything on your mind? She paused for a second, the mug halfway to her lips. Then smiled. Nope. Just work. I smiled too. But my chest felt hollow. Because now I was keeping secrets too. I didn't sleep much that night either. The message, the silence, the way Emily looked me in the eye and said, "Nope," it all kept circling in my head like a drain that wouldn't quite empty. Around 1 a.m., I gave in. I grabbed my laptop, turned the brightness way down, and started digging. Not just scrolling, digging. I searched her name along with his, checked old photos, comments, mutual friends. Most of it came up empty. No official link. No tagged pictures together. But there was one odd thing. A mutual connection I didn't expect. A guy named Theo Carr. He was listed as a friend on both their profiles, and that name I did remember. Theo had shown up once at our apartment, briefly. Some sort of courier gig. Dropped off a package and left. Emily brushed it off at the time, said he used to date a friend of hers. But I remembered the way he looked at her. The familiarity in it. Like someone who'd seen her cry. I found Theo's Instagram. Wide open. Lots of photos of motorcycles, black coffee, and obscure vinyl records. And there, in one of the older posts, was a selfie of him, Mason, and Emily. All smiles. The caption said, "Three Musketeers. Summer that changed everything." Dated July 2018. A year before we met. My chest tightened. I stared at it for a long time, then did something I'd never done in our entire relationship. I opened Emily's phone. She was still asleep, her face turned toward the wall. I felt like trash doing it. But I needed answers. Needed them like oxygen. Her passcode hadn't changed. I opened her messages. Nothing under Mason or Theo. But in her hidden folder, the one you only find if you know it's there, I found a thread with no name. Just a number. A message dated 4 weeks ago. He still doesn't know. My mouth went dry. I tapped into it. It was short. Only a few texts. Mostly cryptic. "I can't. You know why. He'd leave me. This is the last time, I swear." And then the one that stopped my heart. I still dream about it. The lake. The scream. The silence after. My fingers went cold. What lake? What scream? I locked her phone, set it back exactly where it had been, and laid down again. She stirred slightly and mumbled something I didn't catch. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My mind was racing in every direction. But one thing was clear. This wasn't about jealousy. It wasn't about an ex who couldn't let go. This was about something deeper. Something darker. And I was already in too far to walk away. The next day, I told her I was working late. I wasn't. Instead, I messaged Theo. I didn't try to be subtle. I just typed, "I know about the lake. I think it's time you told me what happened." I watched the screen for almost 10 minutes before the typing bubble appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Finally, "Meet me. Tomorrow. 4 p.m. Baldwin Pier." Baldwin Pier. The same one from Mason's profile picture. I almost dropped the phone. That next day felt like it took a week to pass. I went to work, answered emails, smiled through meetings, but I wasn't really there. My mind was already at the pier. When I got there, he was already waiting. Leather jacket. Sunglasses. The kind of guy who looks like he belongs in a band even if he's never played an instrument. He didn't say hi. Just nodded and lit a cigarette. I figured it was only a matter of time, he said. I waited. "She didn't kill anyone," he added, before I could ask. But it wasn't clean either. I swallowed. "What happened?" He glanced out over the water. "Summer after college. The three of us, me, Emily, Mason, we were tight. Drank too much, stayed out too late, told each other everything. Or we thought we did." He exhaled smoke. "One night, we went out on Mason's boat. Just the three of us. Middle of the lake. No lights. No cell signal. Just water and stars. And something happened." "What?" He paused. "Mason fell in. Emily jumped after him. I didn't. I froze. My skin prickled." "Did she save him?" Theo's jaw flexed. "Eventually. But not before he hit his head on something. We dragged him back onto the boat. He was bleeding. Disoriented. Said he heard a voice calling him under. Like someone whispering his name from below. That's not possible." "No," he said. "It's not. But ever since that night, something changed." Mason started unraveling. Obsessing. He said Emily knew what really happened. That she was lying to him. That someone else had been on that lake. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Then one day, he just vanished. Theo flicked the cigarette into the water. "You think he's dead?" I asked. Theo shook his head. "I think he's watching." And with that, he walked away. I didn't move for a while after Theo left. Just stood there, staring at the water, trying to make sense of what I just heard. A boat. A scream. Blood in the dark. And Mason, watching? It all sounded like something out of a movie, and yet nothing in Theo's voice had felt exaggerated. If anything, he seemed like a man holding back, someone who'd lived too long with a secret that didn't sit right in his gut. That night, I didn't confront Emily. I couldn't. Instead, I watched her like someone trying to read a stranger's face in the crowd, seeing if I'd been missing something all this time. And the worst part? She seemed happy, peaceful. She curled up on the couch, legs folded beneath her, hoodie pulled over her hands, and asked me what kind of takeout I was in the mood for. I mumbled something about Thai food. She smiled, got up to place the order, and I caught my reflection in the TV screen. I looked pale, haunted. I needed more. Something definitive. Something that wasn't just someone else's memory. So the next day, I drove to the lake. The one from the photo. Baldwin Lake was quiet in early spring, too cold for swimmers, too early for campers. The kind of place where secrets settle and stay. I parked near the trail that led down to the water. There wasn't anyone around, just the sound of birds and the distant hum of a highway. I walked to the pier. The same one from Mason's profile. Weathered boards. Rusty bolts. I stood at the edge, just like he had, and stared down at the rippling surface. It was deeper than I expected. Darker. I imagined falling in. I imagined not coming back up. I walked the perimeter of the shoreline, searching for anything, a name carved in a tree, initials scratched into a bench, some sign that 3 lives had changed here. And then I found it. Tucked behind a low cluster of trees was an old wooden signpost, mostly hidden by moss and time. It marked a private dock. Closed for maintenance, it said. But someone had tied a red ribbon to the top. Faded, weather-worn, and tied in a specific, deliberate knot. I don't know what compelled me to do it, but I took a picture. The ribbon, the sign, the lake in the background. When I got back to my car, I sent it to the number from Emily's hidden messages. No words, just the photo. This time, the reply came instantly. You shouldn't have gone there. I stared at it, heart pounding. Another message followed. She made a choice. We all did. You don't want to know more. But I did. I wanted to know everything. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't pretend anymore. I drove to a hotel 2 towns over and checked into the cheapest room I could find. The carpet smelled like smoke. The sheets were stiff, but at least it gave me space to think. Around midnight, I texted Emily. Staying with a friend tonight. Work stuff. I stared at the screen for a minute before switching my phone to airplane mode. I needed a break from her, from the lies, from the spiraling maze of half-truths I'd walked into. I pulled out my laptop, opened the photo of the dock, and zoomed in. That red ribbon. I was almost certain I'd seen it before. I flipped through old pictures, birthday parties, hikes, random selfies. Then I found it. From 2 summers ago. Emily and I had a lakeside Airbnb. She's smiling, holding up a picnic basket. And tied around the handle is a red ribbon. Same knot. Same weathered look. I checked the location tag. Baldwin Lake. She told me it was her first time there. She'd said it like it was casual. New. I felt a cold sweat break across my neck. I kept digging. Her calendar from that month. There was a weekend marked girls' trip. No names. No details. Just a smiley face emoji. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I drove to the hardware store. Bought a crowbar. Drove straight back to that dock. I don't know what I expected to find. Buried guilt. Metaphorical closure. But what I actually found changed everything. I pried up the loose board at the far end of the dock. It gave easier than I thought it would. Underneath, there was a hollow compartment, weatherproofed with plastic wrap. Inside was a tin box. Light, but solid. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Opened it. There were photos. Dozens of them. All of Emily. But not with me. With Mason. Laughing. Kissing. On the boat. At the dock. In bed. One of them showed her wearing the same necklace she wore on our first date. On the back of the photo, in messy handwriting, were the words, "She said it would always be us." I dropped the box. The box hit the dock with a dull, final thud, and a few of the photos scattered across the wood like fallen leaves. My breath was ragged. I bent down, picking them up one by one, each one slicing a little deeper than the last. This wasn't a teenage fling or some summer romance. This was a relationship, deep and tangled. The way she looked at him in those photos, it was the same way she looked at me, or at least I thought it was. I sat there for a long time, the dock groaning beneath me like it was tired of holding secrets. Eventually, I put the photos back in the box, resealed the lid, and slid it into the trunk of my car. I didn't know what to do with it yet. I just knew I couldn't leave it behind. I drove aimlessly for hours after that, past towns I'd never stopped in, through empty stretches of road that looked like nowhere. I kept trying to replay every moment with Emily, wondering if I'd missed it, if I was just blind, or if she was just that good at hiding. Around dusk, I pulled into a gas station and sat in the parking lot. I turned my phone back on. A flood of notifications. Missed calls. Texts. Emily, where are you? Are you okay? I'm starting to worry. And then, One that stopped me. I need to tell you something, but I don't know how. My fingers hovered over the screen. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Theo. He picked up on the second ring. I found the doc, I said. Silence. I found the box, I added. He exhaled hard. I was hoping you wouldn't, he said. Why is it there? I asked. Why would Mason hide all of that? There was a pause. Because she asked him to, Theo said quietly. What? He told me. After everything went south. He didn't want to let go. She begged him to move on. Said it was over. Said if he didn't disappear, she'd make sure no one ever believed him. So he buried it, literally. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But why keep it? Why not destroy it? Because part of him still believed she'd come back, Theo said. Part of him thought she'd remember who she was when she was with him. Before the silence. Before the scream. I felt the box pressing against the inside of my trunk like it had weight beyond its size. What do I do with it? I asked. That's not my call, Theo said. But if you want to know the truth, the whole truth, you need to talk to Mason. In person. But you said he disappeared. He did, Theo said. But he's not gone. The next day, I met Theo at an old bookstore on the outskirts of town. It didn't have a sign, just a dusty window with a "Yes, we're open" sticker that looked like it had been there since the 90s. Theo was already inside, thumbing through a weathered copy of Walden. He handed it to me without a word and nodded toward the back. We passed through a maze of uneven bookshelves until we reached a door with peeling blue paint. He's staying here, Theo said. Above the shop. Works for the guy who owns it. Keeps to himself. But he'll talk to you. How do you know? I asked. Because I told him you'd come. My stomach twisted. I knocked once. Silence. Then the door creaked open. Mason looked older than in the photos, leaner, rougher. His eyes were sharp but tired, like someone who hadn't really slept in years. He studied me for a moment, then stepped aside. Come in, he said. The apartment was small. Sparse. Just a couch, a bookshelf, and a record player humming something low and jazzy in the corner. I sat down. The box was still in my trunk, but I didn't need it here. Not yet. You want to know the truth, Mason said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I said. Why didn't she tell me about you? He laughed. Not bitterly. Just like someone who'd asked himself the same thing too many times. Because I'm the part of her life she chose to erase, he said. We were in love. The kind of love that makes you reckless. But things got dark. That night on the lake, I didn't just fall. I jumped. I blinked. What? I wasn't trying to end things. Not really. I just wanted her to care again. To panic. To realize how far we drifted. He looked out the window. But she didn't panic. She waited. Then jumped in. Not to save me. To shut me up. I stared at him, trying to process it. That's not possible. You weren't there, he said. You don't know what she's capable of when she thinks she's cornered. She said you couldn't let go. I couldn't, he admitted. Until I saw her with you. That's when I buried everything. The photos. The truth. The part of me that still wanted to believe she'd come back. Then why send the friend request? He met my eyes. Because I saw you looking at her the same way I used to. And I couldn't let it happen again. I left Mason's apartment feeling like the ground under me had shifted. The things he said weren't just haunting. They were heavy in a way that stuck to your bones. The part about jumping to make her care? That was the kind of emotional chaos I'd only read about in books or overheard in someone else's story. But now it was mine. And hers. And his. I drove in silence for a long time. No music. No podcasts. Just the sound of my own breathing and the occasional squeak of the windshield wipers even though it wasn't raining. At a red light, I looked in the rearview mirror and barely recognized the guy staring back. I had dark circles under my eyes. My jaw clenched without me realizing. And for the first time since this all began, I felt afraid, not of her, not exactly, but of the space between us. Of everything I didn't know and everything she'd never volunteered. When I finally got home, Emily was waiting on the couch. Her eyes were puffy, like she'd been crying. She stood when she saw me and opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. Don't, I said. I went to the kitchen and came back with the tin box. I set it on the coffee table between us. Open it. She stared at it like it was a bomb. Where did you get that? Baldwin Lake. Under the dock. I know everything, Emily. Or at least I think I do. But now it's your turn. I want to hear it from you. No more lies. No more half-truths. Her face crumpled then, like something inside her finally gave out. She sat slowly, her hand hovering over the lid. I never wanted you to find this, she whispered. I can tell, I said. She opened it. Looked at each photo like she was seeing ghosts. We were in love, she said quietly. But it wasn't healthy. He was obsessive. Jealous. Possessive in ways that didn't always look obvious to other people. At first, it felt like passion. Then it felt like prison. You told me he couldn't let go, I said. You never said you couldn't either. She nodded slowly. Because I didn't want to admit that part. That I stayed too long. That I let it go too far. And the night on the lake, it was supposed to be closure. Closure doesn't usually involve someone jumping into the water, I said. Her voice dropped. He said he'd kill himself if I left. I thought he was bluffing. And then he jumped. She paused. I didn't wait. Not like he said. I went after him right away. Pulled him out. He was furious. Said I ruined everything. That he wanted me to feel guilty for saving him. Her hands trembled. I was scared of what he'd do next. What he'd say. So I told him we were done, and that I never wanted to see him again. And for a while, I didn't. But you saw him again, I said. She nodded. He showed up at my work a few months later. Said he had something on me. Something he'd kept. He wanted to meet. Said if I didn't come, he'd send you everything. So you went, I said. And begged him to bury it. Her eyes filled. Yes. I leaned back. The room felt like it was shrinking. You should have told me. I was afraid you'd leave, she said. You might have been right, I replied. But at least it would have been honest. The next few days were strange. We stayed in the same apartment but barely spoke. She didn't cry. I didn't yell. It was like we were both holding our breath, waiting to see what the other person would do. I caught her looking at the box a few times. Once, I even saw her pick up one of the photos, turn it over, then put it right back. It felt like we were two people standing in the aftermath of something huge, trying to decide whether to rebuild or walk away. Theo texted me once, asking if I was okay. I didn't reply. Mason didn't message again either. I figured he'd said what he needed to say, and I didn't really know what I wanted to say back. Then, one night, Emily came into the bedroom holding her laptop. I think you should see this, she said. I sat up as she opened a video file. The screen flickered and then showed a dimly lit room. A camera pointed at a chair. She walked into the frame and sat down, looking directly at the lens. If you're watching this, her recorded self began, then I'm ready to stop hiding. I looked at real-time Emily. She nodded, eyes locked on the screen. This is from last year, she said. I made it after he reached out again. I didn't know what to do, so I recorded everything. For myself. For you. In the video, she told the whole story. The relationship. The manipulation. The fear. The night on the lake. The shame she carried after. The way she convinced herself that silence was safer than honesty. It wasn't perfect. She didn't paint herself as innocent. She admitted the way she stayed too long, the times she lied by omission, the guilt she never shook. When the video ended, we sat in silence. Why didn't you show me this before? I asked. Because I didn't think you'd still be here to watch it, she said. And now? I asked. Now I'm not so sure you should be. I looked at her, really looked at her, not just the woman I thought I knew, but the one sitting across from me with all her scars finally visible. And for the first time, I realized the twist wasn't that she had a past. It was that she never thought I could handle it. For the next week, I told myself I was thinking, that I needed time, that walking around the neighborhood alone, replaying everything she'd said and everything I'd seen, would somehow lead me to clarity. But the truth was, I was avoiding her, avoiding us. And somewhere in the middle of those long walks, I started to wonder if I was doing the same thing she had done for years, pretending that not choosing was the same as making the right choice. One morning, I came back to find her packing a small duffel bag. What are you doing? I asked. She didn't look up. Giving you space. Or maybe giving myself some. I don't know anymore. I watched her zip it closed. She wasn't angry, just tired, like she'd finally reached the end of some inner rope. She turned to me. I'm going to stay at my sister's for a while. If you want to talk when I'm gone, talk. If you want me to come back, ask. If not, don't. I nodded, but didn't stop her. As the door closed behind her, it felt like something quietly broke. Not a loud shatter, just the soft collapse of something you didn't realize was fragile until it was too late. That night, I opened the tin box again. Looked at every photo. Every curve of her handwriting on the back of them. There was one I hadn't really seen before. It was buried beneath the others, slightly curled at the edges, worn like it had been handled more. It was of Mason and Emily sitting side by side on the dock, feet dangling, both of them looking off into the distance. Not at each other, not at the camera, just forward. On the back, she'd written 3 words in faded ink. We knew better. That hit me in the gut. I sat with that photo for hours, trying to figure out what it meant. Regret? Acceptance? A warning? The next morning, I called Mason. I didn't expect him to answer, but he did. I found the last photo, I said. The one on the dock. He didn't speak for a while. Then, quietly, she said that was the day she stopped pretending. Pretending what? I asked. That love fixes everything, he replied. It doesn't. Sometimes it just delays the damage. I hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling. And suddenly I knew what I had to do. I drove 2 hours to her sister's place. No notice. No dramatic speech in my head. I just showed up and knocked. Emily answered the door with a look that was more surprised than hopeful. "Hey," I said. "Can we talk?" She stepped outside. We sat on the porch steps. No one spoke for a full minute. "I looked at the last photo," I said finally. "The one where you're both staring out at the lake." She nodded slowly. "That was the day I realized it wasn't love anymore. Just memory and guilt." "So why keep the photo?" I asked. "Because part of me thought if I ever forgot how it ended, I'd let it happen again." I reached into my pocket and handed her the photo. She stared at it like it was an old wound. Then, to my surprise, she tore it in half. "I don't need it anymore," she said. "You sure?" "No," she whispered. "But I want to be." We sat in silence again. The wind picked up. Leaves swirled around the sidewalk. Somewhere inside, a dog barked. It felt like the universe was pausing, waiting to see what I'd do next. "You hurt me," I said. "I know," she replied. "But I hurt myself too. Every day, I chose silence." I looked at her, really looked. "You still love me?" Her answer was immediate. "Yes. And I wish that made everything easier." "It doesn't," I said. "But it means something." She nodded. I stood. She did too. For a second, we just stood there, inches apart, not touching. Then I reached out and took her hand. Not tightly, just enough to say maybe. Maybe we could rebuild. Maybe it was worth it. Maybe the truth doesn't always destroy you. Maybe it sets you free. As we stood there, her head resting lightly on my shoulder, I felt something loosen inside me. Not all the way, not completely, but enough. Later that week, I got a new friend request. No name, no profile picture, just a blank gray icon. I clicked on it. One mutual friend, Mason. The only post on the profile was a single sentence. "If you're reading this, it means she chose right this time." I stared at the screen, breath caught, and then I hit delete. Not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need the past watching us anymore.